that the resonators take a corner and the chicken man takes a corner and a soldier takes a corner are all quite different, even though the same like decision of like I want to go around this corner, that basic behavior is the same. Actually implementing how that's animated, what path they take, all that kind of stuff, that's where a lot of the difference comes in. And then from a non-technical point of view, you do get that same like that balance, that design point of view, where it's like we want this to feel like a monster, but we also want it to like we want tactical gameplay, which means you kind of have to understand it at least a bit. It can't be too weird. So finding that balance where you can communicate to the player how weird it's behaving, but still allow them to make like tactical decisions around that. That's going to be one of the interesting challenges.
Also, people on YouTube, hopefully, what is this? Most of all, they're melee. How is
Yeah, so I haven't worked on too many of the melee enemies so far. I've been primarily focused on the soldiers and getting the cover stuff into play. So I haven't been, I can't speak to that too much, but a lot of the fundamentals of like move into a position to attack and all that kind of stuff is all the same. So there are some differences with how exactly the melee attacks uh, look and animate and all that stuff to get them um, to work good, and like just getting like precise positioning for where to attack from rather than like just move behind cover over here. That's a bit different, but the fundamental decision making of like I want to move somewhere and attack is kind of the same. There is some stuff about like exactly how they move, so it would be nice. This is something we're talking about. No promises at all, but like having the enemies who are moving into melee like be more evasive rather than just coming in a straight line. Stuff like that. Those can be some of the challenges where just the way a monster moves versus the way a soldier moves can be different.
challenge? I guess so. For example, you said you urgency. How?
Yeah.
What is pedigree? I don't want to say survival horror.
Yeah. Yeah. So from a strictly technical perspective, um, not a lot. Um, it's still, very similar architectures and stuff like that for how you're building them. A lot of that comes down to like the design and the feel and the sound because like especially you mentioned survival horror, and one of the big things with survival horror is like feeling that lack of control. But with like tactical games, you really want to feel in control, like you're being the tactical guy, you're assessing the situation, making good decisions, and the horror element I think feels like throwing a wrench into that. So it's going to be very interesting to make enemies that can scare you, that are frightening, but you can still approach tactically. And that's a lot of that's going to land on the shoulders of like Trey and some of the other designers to come up with some really good ideas for that. And then I'll just be making it work.
Have they ever like I don't know how kind of been
Um, it's a lot more of discussions, I would say, rather than like, oh, I can't do that. There'd be like, there's a lot of like, oh, hey, it would be cool if we could do something like this. Is that technically feasible? And then we can start talking about, well, that might not be, but something else might work. And then of course, once you like start talking about that, then it's like, okay, how much new tech would we have to build to do that? How's that affect timelines and so on and so forth? So finding like really cool stuff that's relatively easy to build with our architectures, or building tech that will solve a number of different problems. So if we were like, oh, hey, it would be really cool if we could have enemy X jump over cover or something like that. And it's like, okay, that's cool, but we would have to build new tech for them to be able to like say, where can you do this? And all sorts of stuff around that. But then if you start talking, well, if we have that tech there, we can do this with enemy Y and this with enemy Z and this with whatever, then you can start to be like, okay, now that's going to be a lot of work to build, but it'll give us all of these wins. So yeah, it is definitely more of a discussion than a, oh, you're asking for this, that's going to suck. Yeah.
I guess
Yeah. And that, oh, and that's like something like if you look at our release schedule coming up for the milestones, I know a lot of it's like all redacted and stuff like that, but you'll notice there's not a lot of AI stuff on there for point 15, and there's more of it on point 16, and that's because we have to build some tech this release that will be used to build the stuff for the next release.
yeah, questions.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that was, it's kind of interesting building out a bunch of those like different game modes and whatnot, because um like sometimes you just hit upon a gem and you're like, oh, hey, this game mode that we just kind of threw together for fun is really great, we should lean into it more. But also it does kind of spread your attention. So there's always some people that absolutely love, usually like there's this niche audience that loves this one specific game mode, but you you can't really split all of the effort to focus on that one, or else you know you're this single player campaign takes longer, and it's always trade-offs, and trying to identify what gives us the most bang for our buck for making people happy and making a fun game. Sure.
Adding those like every other time. I always.
Oh, fun times.
So has there been any of not enjoyed what has
Um, ooh, that's an interesting one. Um, there's part of it is um, not AI specific, but like it's a fully remote studio, and I'm one of those ones that actually likes being in the office with the people I'm working with, and like it was so great meeting up with everyone at GDC this year. That was amazing, but like coordinating time zones and um, only talking to people on Discord and stuff like that is not my favorite thing. Um, The other thing that I'd say is painful is I think going back to like there is some of that like fundamental AI architecture and structure that needs to be built and that hasn't been built. And now that the game's already out and people are already playing it, there's really that demand for like new features, but it's really that balance of like I want to build that, but we need to build some architecture for that first. And you keeping managing that trade-off of when to focus on like fundamental features that aren't really player facing that you guys won't see when an update comes along and you'll be like, hey, what's the team doing? Versus getting out more stuff, but that stuff might not be great because we're missing features that it needs for it to be great.
That is
So yeah, I'd say those are the two pain points for working on AI here for me.
add like a not as flashy as
Yeah. Um, there, I, it sounds vaguely familiar, but I'm not, no, I can't say that I am.
I bring it up.
Uh, yeah, yeah, oh yeah,
So, question:
sure,
fired
yeah.
to add the Antarctica part of the camp.
That is not something I can talk about. I don't know. The Antarctica campaign was being worked on before I started here.
That is a question you have to see.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe that the new enemies for that are all currently redacted, so I can't, even if I knew about them, I couldn't tell you about them.
Kind of the worst. I always
Okay, yeah.
yeah. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Yeah. So,
talk about it.
yeah. Yeah.
Avoiding
Sure.
that was more. Are there unique issues you run into? I guess because the background.
Um, I am not huge into SCP. I've read a couple of them here and there. I'd read the Anti-Mimetic book during COVID at some point. Last year I read like I like that kind of like weird sci-fi stuff. The House of Leaves. I have played. Oh God, I've forgotten the name of it. Control. Um, so like I like this kind of stuff, but I never really got into the SCP. So like I honestly could not tell you the SCP number of anything that we're not working on right now. So
All
yeah,
right, so you're not an SCP expert.
yeah,
Have these amalgamations created? How does it tackle what you have
yeah.
to like non-comprehend? Actually, build something. When Al Barney was, I thought it was like
Yeah.
pretty relatively. I thought that ears
No.
on it, and he showed the background AI system how it moved. Christ.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's an interesting one because, um, like, sometimes you can just fake it. Like, we do have that huge system behind the scene for the screen anomaly, but sometimes, like, the players won't necessarily notice if it's just, like, smoke and mirrors. And as long as the AI doesn't do anything really dumb or really, something that just, like, really stands out as not being right, the players will usually justify whatever the AI does as like, oh yeah, that kind of makes sense, and they won't think about it too much. So, I mean, we as people, we're really good at narratives. Like we come up with narratives for everything. If something like doesn't make sense to us, it's because we can't fit it into a narrative. So as long as like whatever the AI is doing can fit into like our narrative for the game and the SCP lore, it's probably fine. So um, there is a lot of like taking like the weird supernatural stuff that like makes no sense, and like if we implement it in the game, we have to code it. There has to be logic, there has to be some kind of structure for it. And honestly, if the players want to have any fun with it, there has to be enough logic and structure for them that they can see to interact with. Like there are some SCPs that would just, no matter how interesting they are, be terrible to play against. um, and I feel like I've lost my train of thought. What direction? What was the initial question? What makes these things challenging?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's taking things that are weird and like are not supposed to be logical and making them logical in such a way that doesn't feel like they're too logical, but is still logical enough that they can be played with. And like sometimes that does mean you need a really complicated system behind the scene, and sometimes you just like fake the hell out of things. Um, the uh, tangent going back to Sandstorm, there was a survival game mode that I worked on where we needed the AI to chase players, and the AI in that game was not at all designed to chase players. So when AI just got too far away from anyone, we just teleported them somewhere closer. It was entirely faked because, yeah, that it worked. It felt good, and it got the gameplay experience we wanted, even though the AI was really bad at chasing players.
I guess they're magic.
Oh yeah, and interesting. Like I've go down to like a lot of the AI talks and stuff like that every year. And it's interesting, like every couple of years they'll have one that's like on psychology or something like that. And it's like how to make AI that's believable to players that has nothing at all technical in them and is all just about like, yeah, studying how people move through crowds and how people react to different things so that we can make things that feel real, even when they're not.
One of the most eyes
Mm-hmm.
documentary.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Like that's a interesting one. Where like, yeah, that one enemy AI, we, because it's just the one enemy, you can really focus on that enemy and build everything to make that experience around it. And yeah, they did a lot of really cool stuff with it. Um, and I don't think they did anything that I would consider groundbreaking for it. I think it was just that like they had one enemy and they really focused on polishing it and make it feel good and using all the tools in the toolbox to do that.
They did ties into
Oh yeah.
was the
Um, so I have been primarily uh, so I just joined 5K in February, so I haven't been here that long. Most of the enemies already existed in one state or another, so I can't speak on what it was like to design them initially. Um, but like a lot of what I've been building is just some infrastructure so that we can do more with all of the enemies. I know that they're like the chicken man getting his pathfinding and stuff to feel good so that he felt like he was just the way he was moving around and avoiding the player, just getting that to feel right took a lot of work and tech. Um, some of the stuff with the zombies, which I don't think has been, no, that's still work in progress. There's some interesting stuff with the zombies that is incredibly hard and complicated to do that I think will be in the next release, and it probably doesn't look like much when you're playing.
and that's
Um,
kind of the
yeah, yeah, and then there's some stuff because like we're working in Unreal, and so sometimes like sometimes Unreal makes some really complicated stuff really easy, but sometimes there's some stuff that feels like it would be really easy to do, and you're just like, oh, Unreal doesn't work that way. And so you basically have to find a way to work around how Unreal does things to get the thing you want. That can be really tricky too. Um, because like Unreal, a lot of its AI stuff was basically designed for Fortnite. So whenever you're trying to do stuff that Fortnite doesn't do, you have to either do it yourself or work around the constraints that they have in place. Yeah.
so we had this.
Yeah. And oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I can
Yeah, I was kind of curious.
yeah, if we want to yeah,
Yeah,
I can show you guys how I debug SCP-3199.
yes, let's see Chicken Man.
Yeah. So this is the default editor screen here. I've moved some stuff around, but this is basically it. So we've got the chicken man in the center. I can move where he's going to be in the level. These are just like the AI tools for the chicken man. Um, I can't remember if we talked about behavior trees, but like those were a big thing. Yeah, we did. That was introduced by Halo and is in Unreal. So like this is what the behavior tree looks like for the chicken man. So this is like where the logic goes through and everything. And I'll show that some more detail later once we're debugging. But yeah, so that's like one of these files belongs to this. EQS, these are all like spatial queries for like finding places to hide and whatnot. So they will look and we've got a bunch of tests. So we get data. So we generate points. This one's around the target. So if the chicken man is targeting you, this will kind of make a grid around you and it'll look for like, which ones can I find? How expensive are they to get there? Does it overlap with the player and stuff like that? And so that that's kind of how we pick where they should go to. And there's a whole bunch of different queries and stuff like this that we do. And that's all stuff that's built into Unreal. Um, so if I fire this up, I can just hit play. Oh
See,
yeah, go ahead.
how complex can it
Um,
kind of reminds me.
yep, I love that game. That
And
like it shouldn't surprise you. That's yeah, it's like build an AI. Yeah.
exactly. The
Um,
entire combat system is like, here's the gambit tree. Build an AI for all the behaviors you want your character to have. Ocean of, I assume that like
yeah,
behavior tree, kind of like a much.
yeah, because it has like so like in in Final Fantasy 12, there's like they use a potion if they're below 50% health. Well, in this, like the behavior tree, you would have to like build use a potion in there. Maybe that's like a subnode that you can reuse, but like there's a way more detail, and like you have to be like, to use a potion on this person, move so that you're close enough to them so that you can potion them and stuff like that. Yeah. So, for how complicated they can get. I have seen a talk, I think this was for Tom Clancy's The Division, where they showed us their behavior tree, where they had one behavior tree that I think was used by every unit in their game. And I swear it was like 1,000 nodes. Like they showed the zoomed out version of it, and like you cannot read any text. You can like it's just lines and blocks, and it's like it looks like stars in the sky or something crazy like that. It is nuts.
That is surprising.
Um,
I've seen
oh yeah,
every image. I never tactical got like guys get around take head fundamentally.
yeah. So that's one where like they gave some interesting talks on that and how they do a lot of like data based stuff. So like each of the enemies, just how they're configured, leads to them, so they can use that same behavior tree, but use different data to kind of get different behavior. So that's like that. That's like that Final Fantasy 12 thing where you're like, this one will use as a potion at 20%, this one uses a potion at 50%, and then oh, this feels a lot different for you as a player, and a bunch of stuff like that. But yeah, um, I don't know how they make that work with a giant behavior tree of doom. That sounds like a nightmare to work on for me. I really like, smaller ones. I'm a big fan of like actually hybrid architectures where you have something like a state machine or um, a utility system or whatever, which are just jargon, that will decide basically which behavior to run. So you have a separate system where the you have a decision making layer, and then below that you'll have a um, performing action layer. So that would be more like going back to like the Final Fantasy 12 example, where like the gambits would be the decision layer, and then how each of those actions is executed would be its own behavior tree kind of thing. That's the kind of architecture that I like, especially coming from like really big software engineering background at like banks and Fortune 500 companies where I worked with hundreds of other devs trying to coordinate stuff. Might be overkill at like the indie level. You definitely don't need that same level of coordination and ability for multiple people to work on the same thing at the same time. But there's still, I think, still some advantages to having a bit more separate structure like that.
Let's see
Yeah,
action.
yeah, yeah. So I'm not going to be doing any programming. This is just going through the debugging stuff. So this is the most of what you see here is default stuff that Unreal provides, where we're getting a bunch of debug information for the chicken man who's over here. It's showing like what data he knows, what behavior he's running. The green space on the ground around there, that's where the path he's trying to take. So we've got him going and hiding over here. And then we've added some of our own. So like, hey, he's got me as a target right now. So we can change the data for that. Um, this is like the cover system. So this shows like where people can take cover from different things. And he doesn't use cover, or he doesn't use this cover system. He just uses some line of sight stuff. But this is stuff that the soldiers would use. There's a perception system as well. This is just built-in Unreal stuff we've modified, but where this shows like what they can hear. So you can see he heard me over there. He last saw me right here and stuff like that. So we can use this for debugging to be like, oh, hey, now he sees me again and is coming towards me. So one of the big issues with working on AI is a lot of the time you only get to see what the AI is doing and not why they're doing it. So building all of these debugging tools so that you can understand why the AI is making the decisions they're making is really helpful. Going back to the behavior tree for a second here, if I do this and this, um, zoom out a little here. So you can see the kind of highlighted path through the behavior tree that he is taking as he's changing and reacting to, the distance I am, has he attacked recently, all kind of stuff like this. So this is definitely showing the what is he doing right now. But one of the things it's not very good for is showing us the past of why he's doing things. And there's another cool tool. This is the visual logger, um, which is just calculating a whole bunch of stuff. And then if I go and hit pause here, no, this is not a good spot to pause. Let's resume. Okay, I can see him here. Let's pause there. And now we can go through and we can like rewind as he goes through and show where he was. And it shows like, hey, here's all the points he was considering and why he scored different points at different values for where he's going to move through. And like there's a
Actually,
there's a ton. Oh, go ahead.
that's fascinating. Actually, evaluating chance of
Yeah. Yeah, so like there's different queries for like, oh, I'm in danger, need to run, go hide. So we'll evaluate different points for that. And this one might be like, I just need to be sneaky, so I'm picking a spot where they can't see so I can stalk on them. And like there's just a ton of stuff that's getting logged all the time. So anytime that the AI is doing something weird, we basically go through and play and try to be like, okay, how do we get the AI to reproduce that thing again? And then look through all of this and be like, okay, at this point in time, he did this thing for this reason. And oh, it turns out like my math was off here or something like that. Or, oh, we forgot to take this one other thing into account. And so a ton of like building AI is just going through and being like, okay, they're doing something stupid in this situation. Go through, look at all of our logic. How is this all working? Try to get what state the AI is in at the time where they made the stupid decision. Try to like work through. And if this doesn't work, you start going through the code and being like, okay, where in this code is this data coming from and stuff like that to be like, why is the AI not doing what we think they should do?
very ties into
Sure.
back the lay. Just the chicken man.
Yeah.
How do you keep it all?
Yeah. So, um, glitches and stuff like that. So I can talk about some of the bugs from Sandstorm for this one. There was a great one where this was one of my favorites. Someone posted this on Reddit, and the way they captured this video was great. They showed their self as the player in the spectator cam, where he's just like crouched down behind cover, and just under this spray of machine gun fire. And then he just zooms out and follows the line of bullets through this like small window 50 meters away. And there's the AI sitting here on the tactical, aiming through this like 6-inch hole in the debris that they can see and just laying down this fire. And it's like, yeah, we do a line check. Do we have a line of sight from the AI's eyes to the player's eyes? And like the AI clearly does, but this also clearly makes no sense. The AI shouldn't be doing this. So sometimes for a situation like that, you want to do something like maybe you do like from their eyes to like a couple different bones in the player's body. So you get their eyes, the shoulders, hips, something along those lines. So like, how much of the player can we see? So at that point, if it's just like we can see 5 pixels of the player, then you might be like, okay, maybe not target them. Um, Targeting at that distance, that's something that's tricky. Is like what distance should the AI engage at and what distance do they see you at. And like one of the things we do is just like the longer the AI is looking at you, the more likely they are to see you. So if you're kind of camped up there and it's like, well, the AI's seen you for 10 seconds, that seems reasonable, but well, they can only see that 5 pixels of you. So kind of matching that logic and making sure that works. Other glitches, like there were so many glitches with like snap shooting that were so hard to reproduce. Um, I was working on this on and off for months, just like players are complaining about snap shooting. How do we fix it? When does this happen? And one of the great ones I remember, I got caught by it. Came around a corner, died instantly, no time to react. I'm like, what the hell happened? I looked at the replay, I dug into it. The AI wasn't aiming at me. They were aiming at the player that went around the corner before me. And we had that thing where like the first shot misses. And it just happened to miss over the guy's shoulder right into my face. So like what do you do about that? It feels super bad. You kind of have to we have to like, okay, go back and redo our miss logic so that our miss logic doesn't accidentally aim at another player. Um like things
And
like that.
that is in some ways tactical shoot.
Yeah, yeah.
Then you don't have them. I assume it would be
Yeah.
very easy to put aim, have them head.
Oh, yeah, super easy. Yeah, and that was actually another glitch where we had, like, the AI could shoot other stuff in the game that's things that weren't players, um, and we didn't have any of the miss logic for that. So basically said, if what the AI was shooting isn't the current player they're targeting, then just bypass that whole miss logic and just shoot whatever it is. Which that led into a fun glitch where if the AI's target happened to change in between like the two separate checks, you would have it so that they're who they're firing at, their new target is now treated as like not a player, so they're not using the aim logic, so they're just instantly headshot you. And like that was just something that just every now and then the code would execute in that weird order. I never figured out I could never reproduce it and get that to happen. But I got it. I just put a fix where it just did an extra check a second time in there. Um, and what was really interesting, there were 3 bugs that I fixed that patch related to these like glitch shots, no reaction, whatever. Our co-op versus AI win rate went up 10% because of that.
Ah,
So for whatever reason, it was just those glitch shots that was killing everyone. So the next patch after that was like we have to really adjust and retune the AI difficulty because we fixed some bugs and now they're way easier. So, oh yeah, yeah,
another new
sure.
program. How persistent go into an area once they see.
Yeah. So that's something I'm in the middle of redesigning right now to make it feel better for the players. I think right now we have um, like they know their last spot that they saw you, and they know if they hear you, and so that they can go and like I heard some gunfire over there, I'll go check it out, or oh, I lost sight of that guy around that corner, I'll go check it out. Um, but they're after I can't remember, I think it's like 10 seconds of not interacting with the player at all. I don't remember the exact threshold. It varies depending on some different settings and stuff like that. They'll just basically forget about you and move on. Um, so there is a lot of that that we want to change to make it feel better. it's not a stealth game. We're not trying to build stealth systems, but we still want you to be able to play tactically around whether or not the AI knows where you are. So um, both like building out those systems under the hood so that they're a bit more complicated, a bit more nuanced, but also a lot of it's going to be building out the player's perception, how they see the AI, because um, the AI is only as good as the player thinks they are, or is only as smart as the player thinks they are. And like your ability to reason about them and make tactical decisions about them are only as good as your ability to understand them. So making them act in a way that makes sense, that, you know, when you shouldn't have to ask, oh, does the AI forget about me? You should be able to tell by playing against them. Oh, yeah, they seem to forget about me. Or, oh, hey, they played a voice line saying, oh, guess I can't find that guy. Must have been the wind, or whatever. We'll do something else. We're not doing that. Must have been the wind. Um, but having stuff like that, that helps the players know, um, you know, can the AI, am I in danger? Can I go here? Stuff like that. Sure.
I think that's a
Yes.
for the
I know there's a lot of more work on voice lines being done on like the sound side, and then on like the behavior side, as I build out these more complicated, nuanced systems for when the AI knows about you or doesn't know about you, that will let us be more nuanced in our use of those voice lines and whatnot. So, um, yeah, that all of that is going to be getting improved.
yeah, because such a on one hand you want players to know. Then it comes back to like I'm sure you grew up any arcade
Oh yeah,
kind of like oh, I touch a health pack and I have full health. Oh, the
yeah,
guy's just shooting at me and then I'm out of the way and he says he can't find me. My God, it's so dumb.
yeah,
And by and we're got like a 5 bajillion line code and behavior pattern. We're telling the
yeah,
out of it and on a more
yeah.
unfun experience. I can't
Oh yeah.
time it does kind of ruin that pretentious phrase ludo narrative
Yep. Yeah, because no trained soldier is ever going to say, "I'm flanking. Oh, I've lost sight of him. Huh, he could be anywhere," or anything like that. Like those lines, there's nothing realistic about them. They're completely gameplay lines. So, um, like getting really good lines that communicate a lot to the players but feel like they fit in narratively and are, make sense. And this is something that's interesting with like SCP and supernatural stuff and stuff like that, where we can be like, hey, is there any like really weird supernatural stuff we can lean into that will make this seem both scarier and communicate to the player better without being like the AI just saying dumb stuff because they have to tell the player what they're doing? So
Yeah, I mean
that's something we're exploring.
that's like alchemy, the golden goose. How do you actions are? How do you? Out of curiosity, but
Oh, I love that game.
such a under.
Yeah.
It's such an under
Yeah.
game that no
Yeah.
take that.
Yeah, that one and Silent Hill were my introduction into spooky games. And yeah, they're fun. I'm so bad at them. usually it was like a group of us getting together watching one guy play, and that was fun. But yeah,
that,
I don't play a lot of horror games myself.
that is the one. All right, a little side tangent. Pass around the experiencing. Can't do that in
Mhm.
VR. One person.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah, and like then like there's the cost of like the headsets. So you have to make a VR experience that's good enough that people are going to buy headsets. And like for a lot of people, it's hard enough just to keep up with a console, let alone getting a headset and all that extra stuff as well. And then you kind of run into the issue, well, there's not a lot of big VR games because there's not a lot of market for VR because there's not a lot of big VR games.
it's a self-perpetuating cycle.
Yeah.
Like
So that's one where yeah, it feels like that's one where it's like it always just needs like one more thing to really get the ball going and really have things get big, but who knows when that's going to come along.
have another after me. That's interesting.
Yeah.
One of my favorite. I
Yep.
love got the Covenant.
Hmm.
I know that there's
Yep.
talks about like writing. What is your
Yep. So for our current system, it is very straightforward. Every AI has a threat system basically, where for every enemy that they are aware of, they evaluate how dangerous they think they are. We don't have any special logic for evaluating is a zombie more dangerous than a player or a player more dangerous than a zombie. I think that how close they are to you is one of the contributing factors. It could also be how recently they were detected. So if like a zombie's running in melee, they're probably going to shoot the zombie first. If they see you before the zombie, they might shoot you first. I think that's how it is right now. Um, as we're working on like all of the stuff like all of their detection and what they're aware of, all that kind of stuff, this is also going to get revamped. And we'll probably at some point need some additional logic for how to determine is as what's the threat between a zombie and a player. We probably don't want to evaluate it the same way. Um, we probably want to have some different logic in there to make it feel good, and we haven't built that yet. So when we do, it should feel better and it should be more. It should feel more reasonable. It's like, oh yeah, clearly they're shooting the zombie because the zombie's about to eat them, or oh no, they're shooting me because I'm shooting them and I have a gun and the zombies are way over there and stuff like that.
classic hire of? I don't know what they.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So I think right now we just have something where it's basically teams. So zombies are one team, the guards are another team, the players are another team, and all the teams are hostile with the other teams. Um, so that's the basic implementation of that. You can do something where it's like these teams start as neutral, but if they take damage, they might turn to hostile and stuff like that. And that is something that we could build if it turns out if we think it'll be fun and add stuff to the game, to the encounters.
That is all possible. I think it's fine.
Oh no. Yeah.
Uh, live and learn.
Yeah.
So like in this debugging
Yeah, so we've got just this basic test level that's got like it's got some doors, it's got some cover, stuff like that. It's something where we can, because it's only really used for testing stuff, we can just throw whatever in there and see what happens. We've got a couple other testing levels. So this is where I do a lot of like sandbox stuff, new enemies, new behaviors. This is where I tested cover to be like, okay, it seems like this would be a good spot for low cover. This would be a good spot for high cover. And like we had things where it's like, oh, hey, those railings there, those are probably not spots that are should be selected as cover. In our first pass, they were. So it's like, okay, go tweak them, change some settings, make it so they're not treated as cover, stuff like that. And then usually once, because like our level design team, they're building the levels that are supposed to be fun for players. And so we don't want to be changing those levels to just test whatever for enemy stuff. But if we start we get reports where it's like, oh yeah, in this part of this level, this enemy's being weird, then oh yeah, we'll load that up and debug it and do the same kind of thing in there. So this is very much a test sandbox, and we can create these fairly easily for whatever purpose we need. So sometimes there might be something like, oh, I need a dedicated level for testing this one feature because I don't want to accidentally break it. Always want to have a level ready to go in where I can just launch it, run it, and be like, okay, nothing's broken here. So I can just, if it was me, I'd probably just copy and paste this test level, hack it together, whatever I needed for that specific feature, and then be like, okay, cool. This is our door test level where we have a bunch of AI who are running in and out of doors to make sure they work.
pool you have to.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is another thing where like at a larger studio, you might have automated test uh, programmers and designers and whatnot who will go and just build a series of levels where it's like on this level we have AI go through doors, and on this level we have AI go and like we have them crawl under stuff, jump over stuff, do everything, test every kind of movement that they can, so that we can just you know, oh, there's been some new changes. Launch the level, hit play. The AI successfully navigated our obstacle course. Cool. No bugs were introduced to AI movement this release. Stuff like that. But like that stuff does take time to build, so you need the resources to do things like that. So yeah, uh, for us, we don't have those because that team is small, and so we do what we can.
So we have a question from Losing Sanity. How did you end up working on AI? Is
Cool.
it a rare job to have? I think you gave a little bit of this in the beginning, but if you'd like
I
a,
did.
he
So it
he might have
is
missed it.
a fairly Yeah, so it is a fairly rare job to have, and um, I got lucky with it because there are very few entry-level AI positions, game AI positions. There's usually not a lot. The AI team is usually a fairly small part of the larger team. And usually the path into it is like you join a team as a gameplay programmer. So that's a gameplay programmer would be someone building anything that you would see in the game. So building how the guns do damage, building how do doors work, how do doors lock, how do doors unlock, building the inventory, building any of that kind of stuff. And some places don't have dedicated AI programmers; they just have gameplay programmers who do AI. Um, but yeah, the most common way to get into game AI is to be at a place that as a gameplay programmer and then work on AI features from there. And if you've got an interest in AI and you've got if you're at like a studio like that, then usually you can talk to your boss or whoever and be like, hey, if there's some AI work that comes up, I would really like to work on that kind of thing. That's a direction I'd like to take my career in, and I'm passionate about it. So if you can give me some of those projects, and if you're at a good place who's not like incredibly, because like some places, like if there's 5 people who want to work on AI and there's not enough work for it, well, unfortunately you don't get that. And some places, like, I mean, crunch happens, it sucks, you want to avoid it. But if you're at a studio that's crunching, they're not going to give you what you want. They're going to give you whatever they need to get out of crunch as fast as possible. Um, that's something I've been fortunate. I've had very little crunch to deal with. Maybe 2 or 3 weeks in 4 years in games.
And so I guess what kind of resources would you recommend for someone who's like, because it seems like incredibly complex. Every now and then I've like taken like intro to JavaScript programming courses, and I get to the like the hello world part of the tutorial, and then after that I'm like, I'm done. It
Yeah.
seems incredibly
So
overwhelming. What is the best place to start?
so there is depending on the studio and the size of the studios, some larger studios have AI designers. They are some of them are completely non-technical, which blows my mind. I was talking with some people at GDC, and they were asking like, how do I get my designers to leave their spreadsheets and open the editor? So they didn't even want to look at the stuff that I've got here on my screen, let alone going into code. They were all just like, we're going to tune enemies in spreadsheets, and that's our job. And those were big AAA games. They have huge teams, so they have people that specialized. Um, but then, yeah, you have AI designers who will just they know how to work behavior trees and do this kind of stuff, but they don't do code. Um, you can
Wait,
build in
you just blew my mind here. There are AI designers that like don't do code. You don't need to know 5 different programming languages.
oh yeah, for
Just
sure.
really.
Yeah, you can you can make in Unreal Engine. I don't have enough Unity experience to talk to that. In Unreal Engine, you can make a game with AI without writing a line of code. You can do it entirely in blueprints and behavior trees. Um, so that's a good place to start if you just want to build AI stuff. There are you're going to run into limitations around performance if you're trying to do crazy things. Um, like if you're building an indie project, you're probably not doing enough that you're going to run into sorry, not an indie project. Like you're doing just some personal project, you're trying to learn stuff, performance isn't going to be an issue. There are a lot of small games that like the difference in performance between a behavior tree and or with between like something implemented in blueprint and something implemented in code just will not matter. Tons of games don't notice it. When you're trying to like really push quality or really optimize performance, that's where it can become a factor. But there's a ton of space for games that don't care about that level of optimization. Um, then yes, you can do it entirely in blueprints. You still need to like there's still a lot of AI concepts and like semi-technical stuff like where the hell did my mouse go? I have lost my mouse. There it is. Like going into this stuff, it is a lot of like we've got all these, we've got to check all these conditions. We've got to uh, understand what these do. Like there's a lot of different properties here that you have to tie together. Um, and like some of these services and whatnot, these are things that you would have to build and implement in blueprints. Yeah. Oh, wait. If I open up this character, for people who aren't familiar with blueprints, yeah, this is what some of that stuff looks like, where you're doing like, okay, when the attack starts, go through and like select from these things, look at all these properties, check for the valid, play animations. There's a lot of like if I was writing code, these would all be different things that I would write in code. And as for someone who's more familiar with code, some of this stuff is easier for me to do in code than like dragging and dropping a ton of boxes around. but this is moderately technical. You don't need to know how to code, but there's still a lot of that same logic. Like, hey, a branch. This is the same thing as an if statement. If you can understand a branch, you can understand an if statement in code. If you can't understand a branch or an if statement in code, well, you're not. Like, you have to practice. You can learn these things. I have for learning stuff for other sources. What I did a lot, so I did have programming experience. Game jams. Game jams are great. You can do them solo. You can do them as part of a team. Um, the first game jam I did in Unreal, a game jam is basically like spend a weekend to make a game. They give you a theme. Uh, do I like to approach it with like I have a goal for learning something in them. Um, my first game jam I did on Unreal, I decided I want to build a platformer with a level where you can beat a boss at the end of it. And basically just spent that weekend following tutorials on YouTube that Unreal Engine had for like how to build a platformer and blueprints. Didn't write a single line of code for it. Uh, studied. I taught myself how to make sprite art. It was awful, but hey, I made some sprite art. They were super simple. So I animated all of the enemies myself, and it was a short level with one enemy, some spikes that would kill you if you stepped on them, and a boss that you could shoot a bunch, and he would shoot missiles at you. And if you killed it, you got a like you win screen at the end or something like that. And that's something you can do to learn. Do a game jam. Ludum Dare does, I think, 3 or 4 a year. Global Game Jam is every year in January. That one often has a in-person meetup at a lot of different cities where you can go, and they are often beginner friendly. The one in my hometown is, so you can be like, I have no experience whatsoever, and they're like, cool, we'll give you easy stuff to do as part of the team, so that you can learn some stuff and we'll make a game together. For AI specific stuff, there is a AI and Games YouTube channel. This Tommy Thompson runs it. He is one of the advisors at the Game Developer Conference, so he often goes to a lot of the industry talks around the world. He has previously worked as a computer science professor, I believe, and so he basically takes these technical talks that are industry produced, industry targeting. They're targeting professionals as their target audience, and he will summarize them for. Some of them are layman. He has like his AI 101 course where he describes like here's what a behavior tree is. Some of them do go into more technical detail, and yeah, that's a great resource for just starting out learning. There is GameAIPro.com, I believe. They have 3 books that they published, and there's another one that the 4th book didn't get published, but all the articles are for free. So the entire contents of these 4 books, which are all professional AI people writing how I built X feature for X game for other professional AI people, those are all free out there. You can just go and read those. Game Maker Toolkit is not AI focused, but they have some AI focused talks. They're another YouTube channel. A lot of their stuff is a bit more entry level. It's not. It's good content, but it is definitely targeted at non-professional audience, and they cover a huge range of things. They're really good. If you the GDC Vault, gdcvault.com is where they have all of the talks from the Game Developer Conference from the past 15 years, I believe. The last 2 years, most of them are behind a paywall. So those ones you can't talk, but anything older than that, if you want to go watch the talks, some of them are really casual. Like they have like classic game postmortem. So if you want to see like how they made NBA Jam, they talk about it. But also, if you want to see how the mobile app version of the board game Race for the Galaxy uses neural networks to build their AI opponents, there's a talk for that too.
Fantastic
Yeah, so
assortment of
those are some resources.
um did
Yeah,
have in those lines, that line of questioning, old caller Bronzong is, but thank you. Oh my god, that was an
sure.
incredible uh, overview of like what to get started. Thank you. I'm making my own horror game, and I've been working with Unity AI only recently. I was wondering what steps I need to go, like similar to Amnesia Dark Descent, as an AI that actively searches for the target if it thinks it saw them.
Okay, so um, I'm not super familiar with Dark Descent. Was that the first one? I think that was. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've watched any Amnesia. For searching for the target if they think you saw them. Um, so I don't know what support there is in Unity. One of the things you can look for is one of the techniques you can use is a heat map. I know there was a talk on using heat maps for AI on the GDC Vault from a couple years ago, so that one would be free. Um, and so that's a technique where basically um, you spread out from where you last saw the player. It's a temperature heat map. So if like it's really hot where the player is, and then it gets colder further out, and you kind of spread out over time. And so you know that the player is in that kind of area. So that's kind of a heat map is a way that you can track where might the player be. Um, if you don't want to cheat, you can always cheat. If it feels good, go ahead and cheat. You can just say, yeah, the player is here. Go pick some spots that are close to them, but not right by them, so that maybe they hear the player. If it's fun, who cares about simulating everything accurately behind the scenes? If it's not fun, then don't cheat. Um, but yeah, so like a heat map like that can spread out and give you ways to think of where they might be. For searching, it's tricky because knowing where to go to search an area, like if I go to this point, I can see this area here, and that's a great vantage point to search for. That's something that us as players have really good intuitive sense for, and is really, really difficult to tell an AI how to do, unless you put like markup in your level to be like, these are good vantage points, and there are places the player you could go and search for. Um, you can do like just pick an area nearby where the player was last seen, um, using something like some kind of spatial query system. So that was, if I rewind this screen a bit, where did that one get to? Yeah, the visual logger on here. One of these we had, yeah, something like this. So where you've got all of oh, the blue spheres here. So this is something where we are, for this query, he's moving to cover. He's picking a spot where he can't be seen. But you can do a similar query for pick a spot where we can see where the player last was, and then maybe go to that spot and pick a new spot around there that's distant from the player. So you can use something like this to kind of create a grid around where that player last was, and then have some kind of evaluation function where you go over and for like each point on that grid, give it a score. Is this somewhere nearby that we have that I have looked at as the enemy before? Like I just left this area, I don't need to check it again. How close to it was it to where the player was? You can do like pathfinding distance as well to be like, how long would it take me to walk from here to here, and like pick somewhere close to where you are, but where you can see somewhere you haven't seen before. So building out those queries, whatnot, is a way to do that. Um, yeah, you can like there's lots of ways to optimize that as well. Like for reducing the number of like line of sight traces. So if you're worried about performance, that's something to look into is how to reduce how many line of sight traces you're doing, is something like that. And I think another GDC talk. I think I can't remember. There was I think both one for Hitman, and I think one for um oh, what am I? I'm forgetting the name of the game. Dishonored. Dishonored had a talk as well where they talk about how they have their units search, um, and also the AI in Games YouTube channel. One of the talks, they have like three of them on The Last of Us, talks about how they search areas as well. So that can also be a source of inspiration.
Yet again, another great thorough. I hope that was Brazong. Now, next, we have someone, a bit of an AI enthusiast, who's a little bit critical or has some constructive thoughts about your work. I'm very curious your reaction.
Sure.
Um, Nedge, you've been waiting. Here's your time. So, had thoughts. Uh, what you should change with the 3199 AI is to make it much less aggressive since it's afraid of humans, just like animals like deers, and maybe make them crouch and stuff because they're pretty easy to see. So, what do you think about his suggestions about the 3199 AI to make it more lore accurate? And how does that conflict with the directions of the kind of stalker enemy type that it appears to be emulating now?
Yeah. So we have done some we adjusted some tuning and whatnot for it. Like if it hides too much, that's more lore accurate, but then it's not a challenge. You just kind of be like, oh, okay, they're hiding from me. I walk past them. So that's where the challenge of adapting SCPs so that we balance lore accuracy with fun gameplay comes into play. Um, and as for crouching, yeah, that makes sense. Especially like the areas that they're in right now, the uh, the the crates and stuff in there have base like you can see their head over them. Now, LD can or level design team, they can definitely change the size of those crates. So I haven't talked to them about this, but I'm assuming they felt it plays better when you can see their heads and be like, "Oh, what's that? Something's peeking their head over there." So yeah, that's good feedback. That's we're definitely going like 3199 isn't done. Uh, we're going to be iterating on it. We're going to be making it play better. Um, and some of that is going to be like after we've built some additional foundational stuff that will just let us do more of what we want. So yeah, appreciate the feedback. Always love to hear feedback about what the players like and don't like about the game. Um, one thing you will see that from a lot of when talking about player feedback in game design, a lot of the advice given to other game design people is listen to what the players are complaining about. Don't listen to what the players want. Because what the players. There was a great talk from Sid Meier about Civilization, about how the players will optimize the fun out of their game. And so, what a player wants and what they ask for and what they will actually enjoy don't always align. Um, so it's very good to listen to their feedback, listen to what they're having fun with, what they're not, and try to improve things. But often what they want isn't what they actually think they want.
That is always the uh, delicate balance. Any fan, people think that they want,
Yeah.
like for an example, you think that you want Game of Thrones for everyone to team up to fight the ice zombies, and when they got it, they were kind of, oh no, not like this.
Not like this. Yeah. Yeah. And like that would be really cool if it was executed well. But and then there's also something where like there's different player bases and like the vocal player base that you see in Discord and like this might not be the same for 5K at this point in time because it is an early access game, so a lot of the players are more active in the community. But for like a game that's launched, like the vocal game player base in like who's in the Discord versus like the average player of the game who's not bothering to talk about stuff, they can have very different desires about what they want out of a game. Um, like one of the games I'm absolutely love, Teamfight Tactics. It's a strategy game. They were just talking about one of the mechanics in their recent set where like a bunch of the pro players were complaining about the mechanic and how it's the worst thing ever. And they're like, yeah, cool, we get that. But like 90% of our casual players love it and think it's the best mechanic ever. So balancing stuff like that. So I think that'll be something interesting with the SCP community where we've got SCP player fans, we've got tactical shooter fans, and then there'll be a bunch of people who are just like, oh hey, it's a co-op horror game that I can play with my friends. Awesome. And balancing all of the having an enemy that's satisfying to the SCP lore, that's satisfying to tactical gameplay, and that it's fun for a casual player and getting all that stuff, that's going to be tricky to pull off. And honestly, that's why something like having the game out in early access and getting this kind of feedback is great because that's how we get that balance.
Little critiques on the AI. And Edge says, but I still think the
Sure.
human AI should be better, but especially the Class D pain. Guards have been cured, and that also their that's because Class D.
Yeah.
What is your thought about that? Because I know that now the guards have like security guards do have voice line, very kind of robotic, similar to Half Life Two.
Yeah.
But I guess
Yeah.
how is that
So
lore reflected in your?
yeah, that's one that's definitely interesting because I've heard people complain about, oh, that they sound so robotic and that sounds so bad. What's with that? Or like there's something about like trying to get more diversity in how they sound, so it's not just the same like generic voice line over and over. But it's like, but yeah, in the lore, they're like super robotic and stuff like that. So how do we make that feel good? Um, I haven't been uh, specific to voice lines. I haven't been working on those too much, so I can't speak to that. I know there's discussions around this going on for how to make them feel better for both lore and for gameplay. As for making like the human AI better, yes, they need improvement. They're not done. Um, the cover use right now is a very rudimentary implementation. It works, but it is far from polished. And then there's just a lot more advanced behavior coordination, planning kind of stuff, though not using planners. So that's a tricky thing. A planner is a technical AI term. So if I say planners, probably doesn't mean anything to you guys, but I want to we're not that is not a thing that we're doing. Um, and yeah, there's lots of work to do there, lots of ideas for how to make them better, and those will be coming in future updates.
We have a will the creatures stop running into works needs?
Yeah, so that is that is an interesting one. It depends on why they're running into walls. So I haven't seen a ton of that myself. This is something else that gets interesting. Like the amount of the time I can spend playing the game versus the amount of time all of you guys spend playing the games. So like if a bug happens in like 20 playthroughs of the game, I don't see it very often. A lot of you guys see it. Um, So running into walls, I know they have some issues with getting stuck on doors. Those are something I'm looking into right now. I think there was like a caching issue where some of like the navigation stuff wasn't. We changed some stuff with how the doors worked, and like some of the stuff was cached with like the old functionality somehow, and we had to like rebuild a lot of stuff. Sometimes with getting stuck on walls, I think it might have to do with like the different size of certain enemies, and like they think the wall is further away than it actually is. Um, yeah, it is not one I'm actively looking into, but there are definitely some fundamental issues in some of our navigation stuff that we want to improve on that will hopefully fix some of these problems when we take care of that. Um, oh, I guess it could also be something like if it's soldiers, it could be cover related, where as I said, cover implementation is pretty preliminary. So like if when they move into cover, they happen to move off the navigation mesh slightly, then they're like, oh, I'm stuck. I'm not on navigation. I can't move. Um, if I since I don't know if everyone knows what navigation mesh is, if I just resume
They may
this
not.
and I hit
That's ooh.
the zero button. So if I do this, so this shows the navigation mesh around myself as I'm moving here. So this is what the AI sees of the world for where they can move. So like around this corner here, you can see where the AI will move around the edge because there's no navigation there. The AI will move around that. We have, uh, can't go through that window. This is a door. You can see that there's like, the door is closed, so there's a link there. And when the door is opened, we change the navigation mesh, and now they can just move through it without having to take the action of opening or closing the door. Um, and yeah, anytime there's an issue with navigation, there's sometimes like a prop is set to affect navigation when it shouldn't. Sometimes it's something to do with how the navigation is generated around certain stuff. Like this obstacle here, we can see it's red because that's meant to be an avoid thing, but the AI can still attempt to move over it. And like if they happen to like get stuck or something like that, so there can be a lot of things. Sometimes it's layout specific for how it is in a level. Sometimes it is a bug with how the navigation is being generated, and sometimes it's a bug with how we're actually pathfinding. I've had issues for sure where the AI will open a door and end up behind the door and then be like, oh, I'm stuck here. Um, so that is there's a lot of like small nuance stuff related to navigation to make it feel good that we're going to have to do more work on.
So it's
Let's just leave it at that for there.
always a work in progress. Challenged. Thank you for giving that sort of
Yeah.
so site about does the AI check for friendly fire? I've seen guards just shoot their buddies right in front of each other. So
Yeah,
that effective. Um,
I'm pretty sure that they do not check for friendlies blocking their line of sight before they shoot. Yeah, that's like I so one of the issues you can run into is if we go like, okay, don't shoot if there's a friendly blocking your line of sight, and then it's like, okay, now we're going to start doing a burst shot, and then like a friendly walks right in front of them. Having them interrupt that is and like having the friendly not walk into the line of fire, that's a bit more complicated. So um I know we have I think in Insurgency they just like didn't bother to check for friendly fire, and AI just didn't do friendly fire, and it worked reasonably well. So um we might go that route where we just have like AI don't do friendly fire for enemies on the same team. Maybe they do for enemies across teams. If that feels reasonably good, and that would be a small effort thing. Um, or we could spend more time on it and have a lot of like the AI will like try to stand somewhere where they're not blocking anyone else's line of fire, and um, that takes both more work, but also it means uh, you're doing more complicated pathfinding queries. So like when I say I want a path from point A to point B, the navigation system will just kind of give me a straight line. But if that straight line goes across someone's line of fire, you have to kind of be able to dynamically say, this person is attempting to shoot through here, so you should path around it. And usually the AI only calculates their pathfinding at the start of it. So like getting them to path around without having like you'd have to like reevaluate the path every time someone starts shooting or something like that. So stuff like that could get really expensive. So that's where like to get a really good result that feels good and looks realistic is a lot of work, whereas just having them be immune to friendly fire is really easy. So that's going to definitely be that's kind of thing you have conversations around to be like, how much does it add to the game to have the AI that realistic around friendly fire, and how much effort is it worth, and what other feature do we not build instead?
Always a what you can and can't. Time is the enemy. Time and money always the enemy. Getting every. There was a question earlier. By any chance, are you familiar with the Justice for Philomene?
No.
So I will give you some context.
Sure.
Ages ago, well, a few weeks ago, we had Kyle Fitzpatrick signed SCP and how they would work in a frame. Did a design for SCP 7 something or another, colloquially known as Bananazilla. Basically, just imagine X made one of the sillier SCP, but
Okay,
he made
cool.
a great design for it.
Yep.
So I guess if Bananazilla was to come to the game, what would you do programming behaviors for the wonderful?
So what I would probably do, I would start off by reusing everything for SCP-3199 for the Chicken Man, and then just tweaking a bunch of settings so that it's like less hiding and more like aggressively chasing, and see how that plays. Is it fun? How does it fit with the lore? Um, Stuff like that, and then go from there. Start being like, okay, is this something where it would be good enough if we just add, like, if we just basically keep the same behavior, maybe scrap the charge. This charge is a more specific thing, and just have it like run at you. Does that feel good enough? Um, like I don't does it, like if it's just a giant monster made out of bananas that tries to eat you immediately. Like there's not a lot of like special behaviors you need for stuff like that. Like if it's like dropping banana peels behind you and it's trying to like run in front of you like Mario Kart style, make you spin out or something like that, that's when it would get crazy, and you'd have to be like, okay, let's start calculating weird pathfinding stuff to like um the he's trying to like run away from the player or chase something else and get in front of them. We have to like try to figure out where the player is going. um, that would be not really easy. That'd be easier to do in a single player level because we have a campaign, we have a story, we have a structure. We can say like the player's most likely going this way for the quest they're on, so then we can kind of send them that way. Doing something like in a arbitrary, oh hey, we have free for all game modes where monsters randomly spawn. That would be a lot more difficult to do because you then have to try to predict where the players are going, and everyone knows players are notoriously unpredictable. If we could predict the players, games would break a lot less.
Well, you just need to get the Skynet AI in there and do some war games.
Oh yeah, there you go.
And then you can predict the players. But all right, so we are 5 minutes. I remember you said that you had to leave at 8. We are
Yeah.
reaching our lightning round, so please give your burning
Okay.
AI questions. Get it in here. For Jason, he has been very generous with his time. I hope you've enjoyed this session, and thank you so much for giving us so much insight into the complicated world of designing good game. I uh, because just looking at your screen and looking at the meshes, it just goes to show there are so many things that we do not take into consideration as players that you, as game designers, must. Amazing to think even something as simple as the Chicken Man has to like calculate
Oh
what
yeah.
is the best area to be in.
Oh yeah.
So I am waiting to see. Uh, Zin through the circle asks how social AI would work in the game. I'm not quite sure what he means by social AI, but I guess maybe he means like a AI between enemies interacting with each other.
Yeah. So I'm social AI. Lightning round speed. Top of my head, I don't know. I don't know what the design for that would be. But like having AI who can like coordinate with each other, you need some kind of tool or something like that to be like, hey, we should team up and, go over there or something along that. So that would let us like introduce, um, maybe we have like a social we have a list of like actions or something that the AI can do and some like social way of being like this AI you can ask the AI to do this thing through this manner and then the AI will go do that thing. Maybe it's the player doing that, maybe it's that. Sure. Next.
I am queuing up, waiting for more lightning questions. Uh,
Oh, okay.
what you call it? How? Holy cow! Bananazilla is a real thing. All right. So how will Class D
Yeah.
AI behave in the future? Like, how will it feel like they're really panicked when encountering them? So I guess that's a good question. What are future plans to make the Class D AI feel different than the security AI? It's not just two separate, just a different reskinned guy who's shooting you with guns.
Yeah, so that one, I know that's something that design is working on right now, and we haven't started talking technical details about that yet, so I cannot tell you, but I'm sure a lot of it will be related to like voice lines, animations, and probably keeping a lot of the same fundamental behaviors between them, maybe toggling a couple things on and off, giving a couple unique behaviors to each, and then having a bunch of like tweaks around, they're more likely to do this behavior, or this one will never retreat, or any things along those lines.
Ah. And following up on that from Losing Sanity, do the guard slash D boy AI have different stances? Do they like to attack slash defense mode, or is that something that's coming into?
They do not have any like attack versus defense mode right now. We are building something for like a guard mode where they'll stay and protect the same area and not chase players out of it. Um, and Yeah, attack versus defense mode. Not really. We don't have that right now. Um, if we if the designers come to me and be like, it would be really cool for the AI to be able to uh, do something where they're like assaulting a place, and we want them to like kick down the door and throw grenades through the doors in an offensive manner, then that would be like new behaviors, new logic stuff that we would have to build.
How do zombies attack? They alert the rest of the horde or travel in packs? What's the current AI for zombies?
I have not worked on the AI for zombies, but I believe that a lot of the time it is when they are spawned, the level designers give them somewhere to move to, and they will just move in that area. And that's usually where the players are or where the players might be going to. Basically anywhere we want the zombies to attack. So the zombies will just kind of move as a horde to a spot, and if they see the players, they'll probably all be like, "Oh, hey, fresh meat," and charge you.
Um, and how do AI choose when and where to take cover? Is it done manually? AI choose on their own? I guess did they have something similar to the Chicken Man where they choose the best area to like take cover? How does that work?
Yep. So we use the same EQS, environmental query system that we use for the Chicken Man to select cover points. So we look at all the cover points nearby. Um, we have two options for the cover. One can just be like, we want to hide in cover, and other ones we want somewhere where we can either lean out or pop over to shoot from. And then we take in some factors like the distance from where they are, the angle, like if they're behind the cover, does that put the cover between them and the players? Um, I think right now we're only taking their current target into account. So if there's other players, they don't try to hide from everyone because that can get really tricky. They also coordinate so that they a little bit so that they don't all try to take the same point in cover. They try to spread out at least a little bit. And basically, it's try to pick a spot of cover where the cover is between you and the player, and if you stand up, you can or lean to the side, you have line of sight and you can shoot the player.
Ah. And with that, we are at 8 o'clock. Time for you to enjoy the rest of your. I guess, is there any closing thoughts or final things? What else?
Um,
What closing words? The wonderful Prey community.
yeah, I'm honestly, it's really great to see enthusiasm from the community. Stuff like this is one of the things I love about working in games. Um, Seeing everyone get excited every time we release new stuff, seeing the feedback from it, trying to make something that'll make you guys happy. Um, love see like if you guys see the AI do something really bizarre and bad or funny, I love seeing that too. And yeah, keep having fun, keep sharing your feedback, and look forward to doing this again in the future when I've got new stuff to show off.
Well, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to have you. Hope you enjoyed it. That thank you for showing up, everyone. We our next community event is with Sterling, who will be doing 3D model. Have a series of very interesting events coming in the next. So we cannot wait. And stay tuned. We always have something cooking in the fire. Working. Hope you wonderful Saturday.